Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Millie, and today it's a little bit of a windy day and a little bit of a frustrating day. I am refilming a couple of different videos that I did last week because my camera deleted all of the film. I'd filmed several videos actually, and I'm only going to redo 2 of them. The first one I posted a few days ago, and I'll link it up here. It's how I reduce suckers on my apple trees, on the trees that I'm using the Grow a Little Fruit Tree method on. And this one is on some new garden beds that I've gotten. Now, as I said, I filmed the video last week, and these are videos that is really hard to redo because I would have had to empty everything out again. So this is going to be kind of a semi-recreation. I'm going to show you what I did, and then hopefully it'll be helpful to you. So let me show you what I have back here, the first new bed that I have. Now this is the first metal bed that I've ever purchased or used. Now the reason I decided to use this one is I needed a place to put some Jerusalem artichokes that was contained, and also I want to use half the bed for squash. So I thought this would be the perfect place to put them, and it will also help contain the Jerusalem artichokes. They're already planted. I already added the soil, and let me kind of show you what I put in there. Now this is not a Birdie's raised bed. This is not a Vego, or however you say it, V-E-G-O. This is a, and I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a newer one. It's a V-E-G-E-G-A, Vegega, I think, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. But anyway, it's a new bed. It's got a coating on it, supposedly, that is supposed to help prevent rust, and it's supposed to be a really good, different kind of coating. I'm not sponsored by them, so I don't have all of the information. I just bought this with my own money because it looked like a great one to have. It was really easy to put together. There were several screws. Sorry for my shadow. There were several screws. I dug a trench and added my irrigation. So when I'm ready to redo irrigation, I'm going to put a couple of circles of drip irrigation in here to help water the whole thing. But let me show you what I did for the soil. Now this is what I added to the bed. It's not 100% these because it's such a deep bed, it would have been really expensive to fill it. What I used instead was, number 1, all the bark that I moved out of the way got piled in the bottom there. And I would have tried the hugelkultur method of putting logs and branches and garden waste down at the bottom, but I didn't have any of those because I didn't think about that when I was pruning my trees. If I do another bed like this, I may end up doing it that way, but this one ended up using the bark that I moved out of the way, and then some compost mulch that I put in the front. Let me show you what that looks like. Now when I redid my front yard, I went ahead and got some compost mulch. It's basically just wood product with a little bit of garden waste composted into it. So it doesn't have a lot of nutrients, but it is going to hold the soil moisture in here while I wait for my chip drop. I'm going to mulch this whole area with wood chips. So I had extra of the compost mulch, enough actually to fill this all the way full. But I wanted to use this for something else that I'll show you in a minute. So I needed to create a lot more of a soil mix that would be good for growing vegetables. So let me show you what I added to the compost mulch. First thing that I added was Oakdale organic compost. Now for all of the containers that I filled, I had 8 bags of that. We also had 2 bags of peat moss, a full bag of vermiculite. Now I use vermiculite in my planting beds to hold moisture. It adds drainage, but it also soaks up water and holds moisture really well. In the beds that I don't use vermiculite in, I end up needing to water almost every day in the hot summer, but if I use vermiculite, it cuts it down to about 3 times a week. So vermiculite is really important in my planting beds. I also, for the first time, wanted to try the soil conditioner, which has mycorrhizae, humates, and earthworm castings. Not really incredibly necessary, but I decided I would just give that a try, so I put a whole bag in. I mixed it all in this bed, and I had to do it several times because let me show you what I also used this mix for. So right here we have one of my new Greenstalk planters. Now I've seen these advertised online, and I was absolutely not going to get pulled into the whole Greenstalk garden tower, that kind of stuff. But as I filled up my raised garden beds, I realized that I had no more room, and I really wanted to have a place to grow more greens. And from all the videos that I watched, it seems like greens grow really, really well in these. So I decided to get one. And let me show you what it looks like. So in the last video I created, when I created the soil mix that I showed you down there, I unboxed these and I put them all together and added the soil in them. But since we can't do that right now, let me take it apart a little bit and show you what it looks like. Sorry for the wind, hopefully it's not too windy. So the way they have built these is amazing, and this is the reason I chose this, and this is the reason I chose Greenstalk rather than any of the other towers. So if you look at this in here, don't know if you notice, there's little tiny holes around the outside edges and then a bigger hole in the middle. There's also a bigger hole that goes all the way down here, and little tiny holes around the bottom of this layer. Now this one I think is a leaf. I think this one's called the leaf. It's got shallower pots, and I can't tell you how deep they are because I'm not sponsored and I don't have all that information. But these seem to be really good for leafy greens. Never mind the dead plants, we'll talk about that in just a minute. So the next layer has this little tray that goes all the way down to the bottom. It's got a hole right here that's a little bit slanted, and then it's got the little holes here. So when you pour the water into the top, right over there, when you pour the water into the top there, it drains out. And as you can see, this hole is slanted, so it leaves a little bit of water in here to be taken out from these holes into the next layer down below, but it drains the rest of it all the way down, and every one of these layers has one of these watering trays in it. So the entire planter, all the way down to the base, is watered evenly, and it seems to be working really well. Down at the bottom, we have a tray where all the water drains down to, and then they have a hose that you can use to direct the water away from the bottom of the planter. You don't have to use it, it'll just drain out the bottom. But if you use this little hose, you can direct the water where you want it to go. So it works really well. Now it is much easier to assemble when it's empty, but you can still, as you can see, do the assembly when it's full. It's quite heavy. But as you can see, it just slid right over the top. Then it has, I don't know if you can see them, there's just little slots right there that go over the edges of these little holders. Sorry about the explanation. When it's windy, I lose my train of thought. But it nests over there really nicely. Then you take the top, and it has little latches that you can connect just like that. Now you need to make sure not to overfill the pots, and don't press the soil down, because what happens, and I did that mistake without reading the instructions first, it says not to do that. But what it does is it distorts this level and you can't get the latches to connect. And as you can see, it spins nicely. While I spin it, I'm gonna latch all my little tabs here, make sure it's on tight. there we go, it's all latched on. And let me tell you why all of these are dead. These are my snapdragons that I planted in here. And the night that I planted these, we ended up having a huge storm, and I think there were 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Luckily, I kind of had thought maybe there might be a little bit of a storm, so I pushed the table up against here. And everything withstood the storm except for the snapdragons. It was just a little too cold and a little too windy. But the container did not topple over, nothing blew off. All the rest of it, as you can see, these have been planted for about a week. You know, those have been planted for a couple of days. I brought these in from the chard that I had grown inside. But they all look absolutely beautiful. So it's really, I really like these, and I'm really glad that I got them. So let me show you the other one that I have. So right here, we have the original Greenstalk. As you can see, the planting pots are quite a bit deeper. And I put strawberries in these. Now this is in a little bit of a protected area. It's got a tree next to it. The wind generally comes from the north when it's a storm. And this, without any support, withstood the 50-mile-an-hour winds without blowing over. I was a little worried that it would blow over. And I was worried that I would lose the plants, because like I said, they had been planted that morning and then had the 50-mile-an-hour winds, and I think the temperature dropped down into the upper 20s. But as you can see, everything except for the snapdragons looks absolutely great. Let me show you what I put in here. So I wanted some color and food to eat. So we've got some romaine lettuces, strawberries. Look at this lettuce. It's a cutting variety. You know, most of these I just got at Home Depot because I didn't plan very well. But these withstood those 50-mile-an-hour winds. You know, look at the little pansies, they're so cute. All the strawberries. We've got some dark romaine. They all did really well. So this entire thing is lettuces and strawberries and pansies. Now, obviously I'm going to need to be replacing, you know, the things in here as I use them, but it's not that hard to replant in here. Now, I've been really happy with these purchases, and I'll continue to update you as I add new things and as the season goes on, let you know how it does in full sun, because this is full sun. This way is west, so we're getting west and south sun on this. The other thing that I am going to be doing is every time I water it, which, you know, lately has been about every other day, I will just spin it so that everything gets a chance to be in the sun. So that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you do enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe, share them with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.